All right, let's go back a couple of years ago. Stéphane Dion pulled off a political stunner. You remember, right? Liberal leadership convention, a lot of high-profile candidates. Dion was a definite underdog, but ended up winning.
The most exciting race in the history of our party is over. Let's get ready for the election!
And that election he called for has finally arrived. Stéphane Dion is trying to pull off another upset, but he is in for a tough fight. The Liberals are trailing in the polls. Dion has to prove himself as a leader and prove that the Liberals are ready to govern again. So how did this guy end up here? Well, let me tell you. He was born in Quebec City, worked as a professor at the University of Montreal, and got into politics in 1996 when he won a by-election, and he was known as a strong Quebec federalist. And Prime Minister Jean Chrétien named him, Stéphane, Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs.
He's a very intelligent person, very hardworking person. He was an excellent minister for me.
Dion's first big job, take on the separatists and establish the Clarity Act. That act calls on separatists to present a clear question in a referendum on sovereignty. Dion held that post until shortly after the sponsorship scandal broke, and in 2004, under Prime Minister Paul Martin, Stéphane Dion became Minister of the Environment, and he also chaired a UN climate change summit in Montreal.
It is so decided.
Now, as Liberal leader, he's had to rebuild the party, but it hasn't been easy, and the Conservatives have made sure of that.
Do you think it's easy to make priorities? Megatons of money. $5.6 billion, $97 billion.
Since the election was called, Stéphane Dion has made his green shift plan a big part of his campaign. It includes a plan to impose a carbon tax and, in turn, cut income taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, Stéphane Dion. Welcome back to the program. It's your first federal election as a leader of a major party. Has it been what you thought it would be?
Yes, I have 12 years of experience. It's true that it's new for me to be candidate for as a leader, but I love it because I have an opportunity to reach a lot of Canadians and to explain what we Liberals intend to do if we have the mandate in order to make this country richer, fairer, greener. We have a strong view about how to improve this country and how much Mr. Harper is not improving the country.
What do you think at this point of the campaign, a couple of weeks in, that hasn't registered with the voters? Certainly in all the polls, you're trailing.
Polls are like tides. They come and they go.
Yeah, no, but they're all pretty consistent, haven't they been?
I don't comment polls. What I comment, though, is our policies, what we are proposing to Canadians, and how much these values reach the people when we meet the people. The issue for us, the challenge, is to be sure that what we are able to say today on infrastructure will reach people in their living room, and they will see, wow, the Liberals will invest in our water system, they will invest in our bridges, in our roads, and this is exactly what is our challenge, because by far we have the best values, the best approach for this country.
Well, you know that you can't reach every single Canadian because you can't get to every Canadian in the course of a month in a campaign, and that a lot of Canadians just take a look at how the stories develop, and they do look at things like polls, and they look at where your party sits, and they see right now that it's pretty much exactly like it was before the election. Canada wants what it is, and they're clearly comfortable with Stephen Harper and the Prime Minister.
Do you make your choice according to polls yourself?
Me?
Yes.
No, but nobody polls me. I'm not running for office.
I don't think people do that. I don't think people vote because of polls. They vote, they listen, and they put their confidence in a team, a party, that is closer to their values and their sense of identity and what they want to do for themselves, their children, and their country. And it's my job to convince them that we have the best approach.
Do you feel like that's working, that approach?
Yes, I'm confident. I'm convinced that if we have this mandate, our country will be better off 4 years from now. I'm convinced that, in fact, this election will not decide only the path for the next 4 years, but in some ways from the next 40 years, because the difference between the very right-wing conservative approach of Mr. Harper and what we want to do to have a strong economy, to create jobs, and to create jobs for the future, to have a sustainable economy, and to bring people together to fight poverty. We have a plan to decrease poverty by a third, by half for children. I believe in that. It's why every morning I'm so pleased to campaign, because I think each day is an opportunity to make our views very known. What we have announced yesterday for childcare, in order to have childcare spaces in Canada, 175,000. I know we have the ability to deliver that. What I have announced for students, I so believe in the necessity for our country to avoid a situation where only the rich will be able to send their children in colleges and universities. Will change the way we give our support to children.
How are you going to pay for that? Where's that money going to come from?
It will be balanced budget, because it's in our DNA now what Mr. Chrétien and Mr. Martin gave to this country, the possibility to have very targeted investments, good for the people, and at the same time to not borrow it at the expense of our children.
Well, you hear a lot, certainly a lot of people in the Liberal campaign right now talk about the surplus that the Liberal government had when they were the government. But the criticism was always that why wasn't that money ever reinvested? And there were lots of cuts, and that money never went back into the system. And so isn't surplus money to be spent anyway on programs? And so what would be different about this Liberal government than the previous Liberal government who just sat on that money?
I think when we started to have surpluses, the federal debt, according to the economy, if you compare the debt with the economy, it was 2/3 of the economy, one of the highest debt in the G8 countries. Now it's 1/3 of the economy. It's one of the lowest of all the OECD countries, so much we've worked well. So it's time to say that if we have surpluses, and because we'll have a strong fiscal discipline, it's very likely that we'll be able to have surpluses. Part of these surpluses, instead to put that to decrease the debt, we suggest to put that in the infrastructure of the country, because we have a huge deficit about our infrastructure. They are in very bad shape. And if we don't address this problem now, well, our children will have a lot of difficulty to pay for it, because you see, today we have 5 workers for 1 senior in Canada. In 2020, it will be 3-to-1. In 2030, it will be 2-to-1. If at that time they have bridges that will fall down on their heads, they will say, well, our grandparents did not do their work to prepare our future.
The surplus is down now from what it was, over the last couple of years. And like you said, you have this big plan to reinvest all this. Are you prepared to go into deficit to live up to all the promises?
We will never cause a deficit. The fact is that Mr. Harper may have brought us in a deficit zone, because he chose, as a Minister of Finance, somebody, Mr. Flaherty, who destroyed the finance of Ontario. When Mr. McGuinty came in power, he discovered that they had a deficit of $5.6 billion that they were trying to hide. So one of the first things I will do as a Prime Minister, if Canadians give me this mandate, as I hope, will be to call for an independent audit to see if Mr. Flaherty and Mr. Harper did the same that what they did for Ontario.
Do you, they've been saying, the Conservatives have been claiming that you will raise the GST if you get elected. Will you do that?
Well, Mr. Harper wants to control everything to the point that he would like to write the Liberal platform. Well, the Liberal platform has been written by us, and there's nothing about the GST.
So you won't raise the GST if you win?
No, it's not part of our plan.
The economy has become front and center in this election for obvious reasons. It's a big conversation around the world, and a major part of the Liberal Party platform was the Green Shift plan. Leading with that, was that the right decision to lead with the Green Shift plan when realizing that this stage of the economy, it's such a big part of the conversation?
More than ever, because you cannot succeed in the 21st century with the tax regime of the 20th century. What the countries are doing more and more, they cut the taxes on the productive activities, your income, your savings, your investments, and if your business, your profits. Stop to tax that so much and shift it to pollution, because we have a big problem of pollution, especially greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, awful crisis.
So
economists and environmentalists, from David Suzuki to the Conference Board of Canada, to a large coalition, are saying that. They don't necessarily agree with every aspect of our plan, but the path that we are proposing to cut taxes on income and to shift it to pollution is something that is recommended. And in Europe, you have right-wing politicians like David Cameron, the leader of the Conservative Party of UK, who's saying, look, I want more green taxes, not less, more. But I want these taxes to be offset by tax cuts for families. Exactly what we are proposing.
But isn't the challenge of the Green Shift plan in that respect, then, is that what you're doing is you're just taxing people for emitting as opposed to capping emissions? So that there's nothing in the Green Shift plan that encourages them to not have so much pollution, because the taxes aren't even that high on them.
The very moment that the price of pollution exists, you have an incentive to pollute less. If you are taxed on what you burn and not on what you earn, well, you have more because you are less taxed on what you earn to burn less. In addition to it, we are giving it strong incentives for people to decrease their pollution and to save money on their electricity and energy bills. We came with a green mortgage that will give you a tax rate of $10,000 the very moment you retrofit your home with a new furnace, new windows, and so on, plus interest-free on the first $10,000 of your mortgage. So it's very good for families.
Well, one of the big criticisms, though, is that people don't seem to understand the Green Shift Plan. Why do you think that is?
Okay, go to the greenshift.ca. There is a calculator. For a family of $50,000, earnings $50,000 with 2 kids, it's $1,500 of tax cuts. A family in poverty earning $20,000 with 2 kids will receive $2,400 cash to help them. So we are, because we are liberals, we are combining...
Why isn't that connecting to people? Why are they having trouble understanding that?
Now they will understand because we explained that to you.
Fair enough.
I just want to say, it's good for the economy because we'll cut taxes on productive activities. It's good for the environment because we put a price on pollution. And it's good for the social fabric of the country because as liberals, we cut the taxes, especially of middle and low-income Canadians. The tax regime will be fairer, and it will be better for the economy and better for the environment.
Where do you think the Liberal Party will make gains? Because Alberta, I mean, I don't think they've even let somebody wearing a red shirt in there in a long time. And Quebec, the Liberal Party is having trouble in Quebec. Where do you realistically hope you're going to make gains to gain the kind of seats that you feel you need?
I think we may change a lot of things in the coming weeks, including in Alberta. I think our plan...
You're going to win a seat? Another more?
I think our plan is good for Albertans because the money will stay longer in Alberta. Instead to fly out right away with the raw material, the companies will be in a situation to invest more to decrease their emissions, and they will invest more in Alberta than in Ontario and Quebec. I'm sorry. Precisely because there are more greenhouse gas emissions to cut there, the world will see that there is a market where you may invest for green technologies, and it will be Alberta, Saskatchewan, also Quebec and Ontario. But
you think you'll gain votes and gain seats in Alberta? Is that where you plan on making?
I never stop to discuss with Canadians, to listen to their views, and to try to convince them. I decided that I would give my life to my country as a Quebecer because I believe that each region of this country belongs to me as much as Quebec belongs to you. So Alberta is my country. And I want to convince Albertans as much as Ontarians and everybody in this country.
If you win the election, you are the Prime Minister. If you do not win the election, are you still the Liberal leader of Canada?
I will win this election. I'm very confident, and I have a party that is strongly supporting me. I am a team player, and my party gave me an incredibly good team. If you compare with Mr. Harper has a very weak team, as you know. And he's unable to work.
I don't know that. I mean, currently they're the government of Canada. They're the ones that the people sent to Ottawa to be the government of Canada.
And they gave to Canada a Minister of Foreign Affairs that has been an embarrassment, a Minister of Finance that said that...
Yeah, but you know, sir, that is not a Conservative Party thing. The Liberal parties have lots of embarrassing people as well over the course of elections, right?
I never saw that. Yeah. A Minister of Finance who said to the world, don't invest, is the biggest province of the country. When he said, don't invest in Ontario, we should have been fired right away.
Come back again when you're ready. We'll talk
and
some
I would
more.
like to speak also about the Minister of Heritage, who's accepting this government to come with censorship against arts and culture. This is awful, not in my Canada.
Are you talking about Bill C-10?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was drafted by a Liberal, though. The Liberal government drafted that line in that document.
We never reached the first base. We stopped it at the very moment we saw what that meant.
Please come back. We'll carry this on.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Thank you,
Stéphane Dion. Appreciate it. Leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. All right, stick around. One of this country's greatest comedians is here when we come back.